The third and final debate. Well, finally we learned that Acorn is destroying the fabric of democracy, John Lewis is out of line, and Joe the Plumber is a target of Democratic class warfare. Meanwhile, the economy isn't getting any better. The pundits appear to have been flat out wrong on that, and it's been confirmed that the White House explicitly endorsed waterboarding. Is anyone explaining how we got into this mess and how we might possibly get out of it? In other words, is anyone out there asking the tough questions? Our media panel is here. They're going to take a look at the best and worst of the media coverage of the past week. I want to welcome back to the show Rebecca Traister, staff writer at Salon.com. Welcome to for the first time, Brandon Brice, spokesman for HipHopRepublicans.com. Thanks for coming. And Liza Saboteur, who founded the blog site Culture Kitchen, is back. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Where to begin? I mean, the debates are over. We've seen the moderators do their best and their worst. In terms of, well, let's start in terms of what we've learned, Rebecca. What have we learned about the hosts, the moderators?
Well, I think we learned, the person who I was most excited about was Gwen Ifill, and I wound up being very disappointed by Gwen Ifill. And last night, I was the most impressed by Bob Schieffer, who I didn't think I was going to be remotely impressed by. So I think what we've learned is, like, as the pundits learn about everything that they're predicting right now, we're all wrong about everything.
What about on the cultural front, Liza? Have we moved? I mean, this was going to be the election. It's not over yet, but we're getting there. This was going to be the election where this country really grappled with race and gender and class. Have we made have we come any distance, Liza?
Well, you know, when the market drops 777 points in one day, you know, after being at a high of 14,000, I think that people are ready to grapple with all of those issues. And it's obvious with the Snap polls yesterday that people are ready to have somebody to come in and clean the mess that we're in.
Brandon, explain to us this whole class warfare argument. And do you think it's a fair treatment that John McCain's case has been getting?
Well, you know, I think in terms of the media, I think they have really, in my opinion, done a disservice to the American people. I think they focused on issues such as, you know, who Obama was affiliated, or even the fact that Sarah Palin's children, having children at an early age, as opposed to really talking about the issues that Americans truly care about. I think that we have grown. I think the third debate really had an opportunity for John McCain, Senator McCain, to really pump his issue out there. He needed this debate. And
what was the issue?
Well, no, just his stance on the economy, really talking about that, his stance on how he felt about health care. And I think, you know, that third debate really told the American people what Senator McCain stands for.
Give us it in a nutshell, for those of us who got a little confused with the Acorn and the Bill Ayers thing. I may have missed it.
Well, you know, despite the headlines of Acorn and Bill Ayers and all these other things, I think Senator McCain really got to the American people where you truly saw a conservative and a liberal. And I think that's what the American people really asked for.
Well, coming to you, Rebecca, I mean, this discussion about class warfare, I mean, whatever you may think of the Joe the Plumber thing, and it may have been a ploy to get us all to talk about Joe the Plumber for 48 hours, but, you know, there are those who make the case that apparently the Joe who is the plumber in Ohio, who did have this conversation with Barack Obama, made at least to the press in the day after the debate, where he said, you know, I made this money. I don't want it to be given to somebody else as some effort to share the wealth.
Well, I think that what we're running up against, one of the many things we're running up against in this election, along with having all our assumptions about race and gender challenged, are many of our assumptions about class and the kind of culture wars that have divided us. I think after the last election, we saw that in extremis, when after there was all of this blue state resentment toward the red states, and they're, you know, backwards and dumb, and it was a major class division. And what we're seeing here is that those class lines, I don't think actually are holding up in the way that we expected them to. And all of the assumptions about how people were going to view Obama because of his race, and that's not to say that racism isn't deeply embedded into the American psyche and that it's not going to have an impact on the election, but all the assumptions about who would move to which candidate fiscally based on, I think what we're finding is that actually maybe Joe the plumber, specifically Joe, doesn't want to give his money away, but a lot of other people do.
But don't get confused. He was a $250,000 business.
Right. I'm in the wrong business if he's earning $250,000 a year. I mean, seriously, and this is the point that I think was extremely clear between McCain and Obama, which was that McCain obviously has an extremely different definition of middle class and gray-collar worker, as opposed to Obama. Obama was making it clear that if you earn more than $250,000 a year, you're doing really well, and your taxes can be adjusted. Whereas, and he also made the point that within that bracket are small business people. Now, New York City, the vast majority of my friends are consultants. They've had to incorporate. They have to become business owners because there's no jobs in corporations anymore. So, you know, to me, to listen to McCain and as somebody who owns a company, because as a consultant, and listen to Obama, I can tell you that there's a stark difference between
Brandon wants to come in on this.
Let me chime in. For one, I think the debate really focused on the bigger issue with Joe the plumber, which was big government. And having, we do not need Senator Obama to tell us what to do with our money. One thing is when we talk about corporations, you mentioned that the jobs are leaving. Why are they leaving? Because they're getting taxed. And I think that's the big focus with John the plumber is that we did not, Joe the plumber, I'm sorry, I said John the plumber. Joe the plumber deserves to bring in more of his check, and it does not deserve to go back to the federal government.
But the big picture here is you have a guy, John McCain, who is worth $100 million, saying we cannot have a sharing of the wealth.
No. I think this goes back. I really think that the bigger issue was the fact that you should keep more of your money, and big government should play a less role as of now.
That
is why the corporations are leaving.
5% of the population in this country control 90% of the wealth.
Liza, one other moment about the debate, and we're going to move on. Actually, two moments. This whole question of money and the distribution of resources in this country. I was surprised that Bob Schieffer didn't draw the attention of the audience back to the context of this week, this month, say, which was a $750 billion bailout package for the banks. You've got John McCain there saying, you can't improve education by throwing money at the problem. Right. Apparently, we can improve Wall Street. I mean, didn't Schieffer have a responsibility?
He probably did, although the way that all these debates work, they don't answer the questions. I do feel something for the moderators in their attempts to bring them back. Obama actually brought up the bailout. In the question about the massive deficit, Obama was the one who pointed out, if this works, if we structure it properly, you're going to get your money back. Now, okay.
It's always
not completely true.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But I was very surprised not to hear Schieffer bring it up. I think that probably was one of his major omissions.
What about the role that Barack Obama did, the role he performed one more time of a Democrat when called to distance himself from progressive positions in his party, doing exactly that? I mean, when he was asked where did he break with his party, he didn't say on the war in Iraq. He said on clean coal and charter schools and tort reform. Right. Low moment, I thought, for Barack Obama.
It's I guess because, people have already heard, his thing with the war. And I'm the worst person to ask about this. As a former homeschooling mom, I have, issues with the public schools, system. But it is the difference between Obama and McCain. And I feel, for my fellow Republicans is that
your fellow Republicans?
across the aisle, that McCain is pandering to the base, whereas Obama is trying to
Obama's abandoning his base.
First of all, I just want to say Senator Obama has voted with his party 94% of the time. That's fact. That's fact. John McCain in 2000 was not a popular candidate with his own party. That shows the American people something.
But he's
that shows the American people that this man is willing to stand on his own, where Senator Obama has not.
Lowest moment. I'm going to give you each a chance to do the lowest moment. I thought that was the lowest moment for Barack Obama. Your lowest moment of either candidate you wish, and I don't want to prompt you, but Rebecca.
Well, I don't know. Was it the moment where one of the candidates belittled the issue of a mother's health when it comes to late-term abortions? That would probably be my lowest moment.
What do you think,
You know, we
Brandon?
won't get into the late
pick a
term,
low moment.
but I think the lowest moment for the American people was simply the focus on Bill Ayers, and I'll stand behind that. I think, you know, when Senator McCain focused on solely the issues, he had an impact. Now, in terms of, I did agree with, he said, him and Hillary Clinton said both, that any man running for president, the American people deserve to know your associates and who you've had interest with or who you've been involved with. But in terms of, you know, really focusing on Bill Ayers, I don't think that was really significant to this debate.
The audience, little
Totally
squiggly line
tagged.
went all the way down.
Totally tagged.
Liza, your low moment.
I have to say that those two, between the Ayers moment but I mean, I was dumbfounded by the, you know, air quotes. It came across as cruel.
Health of the mother.
Absolutely. Like, it was an extremist position to, you know, it's such, I get infuriated because it's just,
Let's play it so everyone knows what we're
Please.
talking about. Cut number 4, I think.
And I think that's where we can find some common ground, because nobody's pro-abortion. I think it's always a tragic situation. We should try to reduce these circumstances.
Let's give Senator Winston,
just again, the example of the eloquence of Senator Obama. He's health of the mother. You know, that's been stretched by the pro-abortion movement in America to mean almost anything.
Rebecca, back to you. You're so
Wow,
squirming.
it could mean almost anything. It could.
But what about Barack Obama's, you know,
Oh, well, he's
common
doing.
ground? You argued
He's
against that
joining.
last time,
Oh, I
too.
always argue against that. He's joining his centrist Democrat friends in softening his line on abortion. Of course, we don't want abortions. Nobody wants abortions. Nobody. Well, actually, there are a lot of people who do want abortions and need abortions, and it makes me. I understand why he does it, and many people would agree it's a practical choice, as is this weird distancing himself from the rest of his party. But it is sad that it has to be done.
I wish somebody would say it's not a moral issue. It's a medical
It
procedure.
is a medical procedure, and I just want to chime in. You know, I think Senator McCain, when he said that it should be up to the states, I think that is significant, and I think what he meant by the health of the mother was to say that politicians and political pundits have played on this issue, and they don't seriously care
Brandon,
about
you
the
are
outcome.
running for president. Can you
I'm
think
sorry,
there is
but-
any way to get away with health of the mother in air quotes?
I want a
just
president that's
don't
going to
see
be
it.
truthful, and I don't feel that Senator Obama has been truthful.
come on.
And when we talk about the issues, you know, this is a man who has been able to reach across the Democratic and Republican aisle. That's significant to say, can this actually get passed? Can these legislations actually
Last
occur?
comment, we're trying to get off this subject. We're not succeeding. Liza, and then we'll move on.
You know, I have my disagreements in whether it is, you know, everybody wants an abortion or not, and that's
not what
an-
I'm not saying.
right.
I
said some
but-
people
You know,
want abortions. I
but
need
you know,
them.
as somebody who has had one and has 2 children, I can tell you that it is a very difficult and personal decision. I have too many friends who have had to make the decision of a late term because of health issues. Nobody should be getting into a woman's body. And not only that, whenever you claim state rights, I'm sorry, the last time it was in vogue, it was during slavery.
But should
All
it
right,
also be-
an opportunity to move on. Do you think, Brandon, coming to you, do you think that if Barack Obama was white, this at this point would just be a blowout landslide, no question?
No, actually, I think the opposite. I feel that if Senator Obama was white, I personally don't feel that he would have beaten Senator Clinton. And I think that's one of the mistakes, is that you have an African-American candidate. First of all, I've met Senator Obama. He's a great individual. And if he wins, I think he is a role model to many African-Americans. However, he's not the norm. And I think that's why so much of mid-America, they like him, because he is not the norm. There was a situation on the media.
Nobody running for president is the norm, are they?
No, but this is an African-American man who at one time was the head of the Harvard Law Review. You know, that's significant. Now, however, I have issues with his record, but, you know, I think that if he was a Caucasian man, I don't think he would be as far as he is to this day.
The great advantage of being African-American, Rebecca.
Ferrara's position.
I know it is Geraldine's Ferrara,
This is
yeah.
an amazing alignment.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have to admit that, you know, Mark Penn and Rick Davis are compatible in terms of the way that they've run
the political campaign consultants.
Oh God, they're they are twins, and so I really agree. I really disagree. There were too many technical errors in the Clinton campaign. That's the reason why she lost. It wasn't because she was a woman. It wasn't because Barack Obama was a black man, but it was because it was a really bad campaign that they waged. And it's the same with John McCain. I mean, he's for one thing, he's doing another thing. There's no consistency of message. There's no consistency of people out there being his supporters and his surrogates. And you have Sarah Palin just going berserk, and literally ruining his reputation and his honor. And I think that, she's doing a lot of damage. She was described by Christopher Buckley as a dangerous error, and I totally
Quick comment
agree.
from you, Brandon, then we're going to move back to Christopher Buckley.
No, I was going to say, I actually disagree. I think Sarah Palin has actually aroused the base.
We agree.
She has aroused the base.
Brooks.
Okay.
I just have to switch now.
This was too much for you.
My base is just... David Brooks spoke recently at an event in New York City where he apparently alluded to how he had played a role in helping the McCain campaign select Sarah Palin. Now, this is a guy who didn't absent himself, take a leave, or anything from his position as a columnist at the New York Times. Media Matters are all over this. You talked earlier, Rebecca, about your, restriction on doing active political work. Do you think Crystal should resign?
Well, my initial gut response is yes, but then again, I'm also very aware as somebody who writes. I have a voice and a political voice, and I am, in fact, banned from going door to door, making political contributions, putting an Obama sign or a McCain sign in my window. However, I am very free. Those are the rules of my publication. Other publications don't have those rules.
But the New York Times, where David Brooks writes, he's been very clear that he could have chosen to take a leave. He didn't.
Oh, you're talking about William Crystal?
Crystal, not David Brooks. But Brooks was one that wrote about it.
Right.
William Crystal.
So yes, I do. I agree it's a violation. I agree it's a major ethical problem and an ethical lapse. However, I am somebody who also is really asking larger questions about the media as it changes and gets more of a voice, and it becomes... There are very different circumstances than there used to be. So, of course, my gut reaction is, it's terrible. It's a violation. It's an ethical problem. On the other hand, I do think these things are shifting very quickly. And just because this happened to happen on the watch of a campaign that I happen to oppose, I don't want to rush to that particular judgment, which I'm afraid I might. I think that there are lots of things that are changing about the rules in terms of how we participate and write about politics.
It does say something about the New York Times. They really need to sit down and not only write explicitly what they expect from their columnists, but also make it transparent.
I think that they haven't. Explicit. I remember. I think it was Gail Collins writing that she wasn't, permitted to attend a pro-choice rally.
Yeah, but
even
a lot
as an
of
observer, because she was known to be pro-choice, and it was
right. But they have to make it. They have to put it in a place in the website where everybody can find it, where it is there, present all the time, not just an article, but really these are.
I'm with Rebecca. Do we want our pundits and columnists and our reporters
Bloggers
to have no political positions, not to vote? They're talking about voting, not to be dues-paying members of a political organization. I'd rather they just talked about it.
I could not agree. I cannot agree more. But I think there needs to be. You can have your own political views, but I think not only does the truth need to come out with what you're saying, but if we're going to say, okay, there needs to be some form of information put out there, then I totally agree with that.
I think disclosure makes room for objectivity, and that is something that I've thought and wrestled with a lot in my years writing for Salon. And I am somebody who has written who I voted for in the primaries, so that readers could know. I sort of felt that putting it out there helped readers to understand, and then I could be objective, and they could trust that I was not holding anything back from them.
But this is the influence of bloggers in mainstream journalism or traditional journalism. And, as I've been doing it since 2001, and as a practice, Bloggers, we self-regulate in many ways than one, but one of the things that is considered best practice is to put in a blog somewhere, where do you stand on issues, and what are at least the barest of editorial guidelines of what you want to follow. And it's actually ask more of us as bloggers than of a journalist.
All right, we're going to move on very quickly in our last 90 seconds. I would just ask each of you, to me, the top story of the week that got no coverage because of all the rest of everything that was going on is the story about the CIA tactics of waterboarding being endorsed in secret memos by the Bush administration. That's huge. It was on page A1 of the Washington Post, but the pickup really wasn't there. We've got a few weeks left of this election. Are we going to miss key stories? What should we keep our eye out for?
I think we should definitely keep our eye on the election and the issues. As I mentioned earlier, when we talk about past relationships and even waterboarding, that has no bearing on, is somebody going to eat tonight? Is somebody going to own their own business? Is somebody going to have the opportunity to send their kids to college and save money at the same time?
But it might have a bearing on whether your son service person is going to be tortured if they're captured by an enemy force. Rebecca.
I don't know that this is a story, but something we need to keep our eyes on is the readiness with which the press is happy to embrace the economy's back on track story when there is absolutely no evidence that the economy is back on track. And that's something we actually really have to police ourselves about.
Liza.
I'm just putting it out there to all the activists that, we need to keep an eye on these stories, and we need to push the next government so that they can take all these criminals to justice, because if we didn't succeed with impeachment, but we need to take the Bush administration to court.
All right. Well, it's been really fun having you all around the table. Honestly, great. Rebecca Tracer from Salon, Liza Sabater from Culture Kitchen, and in his first appearance, I hope not his last, Brandon Brice from HipHopRepublicans.com. Thank you all. We'll be back with a whole lot more. You're watching GRITtv.